Salam alaikum. We are still with Sheikh Muhammad Jamil Ghazi's, it was only an hour and a half lesson, but for translating it and trying to straighten it out for you all, with my little additions, which you need, it's going to take, I don't know, probably another 3 lessons. So we'll call this part 6. And today we are the day after Christmas, December 20th, 2025, and we are still on the subject of the Yahud and the Nasara. The Yahud are those who deliberately defy, and the Nasara, we call them loosely Christians. But I would ask you to go back to my list of lessons and how many lessons I've done on this subject. So many. It's called Ahl al-Kitab, those who were given the book. But right now, I want to concentrate on what Sheikh Jamil said, Allah yarhamu. He starts by saying in Al-Imran, the surah, Al-Imran, verse 95, you will know that we have so many halals and so few harams, because it begins with Al-Halalu bayin, wa haramu bayin. You can count on your fingers the harams. And they are. Hurima alaykum al-maita. Okay, anything dead, any kind of dead animal, and blood. So whether it be flowing blood or just blood in particular. That's why all Arabs, you notice, whenever they order a hamburger or a steak, they all say they want it well done. And then lahm al-khinzir. And that, anything that's mixed with bones. And I'm just warning you now that if you don't get the Hebrew National, and that's the only escape, I guess, for us here in America, you are going to have minced bones in your hot dogs. There's no doubt about it. So this was, as I told you, he recorded these 40-odd years ago. But, any kind of sausage, of course, is almost, well, not almost, it's always pork. So if you get a sausage, they call it saucisse, if you're in the Arab world, it won't be pork. That's all I can say. But his comment later on, let's wait and see what he said about other things. But for the Yahud, they have more extreme rules because they were stubborn and they didn't accept just what's, in the Torah. So for the Yahud, they cannot eat camel's meat or rabbit meat, and they cannot have any animal fat from cows or sheep except what is on the back of those mentioned. They also cannot have meat on the bone, probably in fear that the person would chew it too hard and eat the bone. I don't know, but I remember my dad. He certainly was no Yehud. He used to love the fat on the steak or whatever. Whenever we would eat dinner, he would tease us because he knew we hated it. And so he would rip off that side piece of fat. It would be a long sliver, and this is delicious, children. And we'd all go, oh, because it was just like white blubber for us. And we thought it was gross. But my dad loved it. For the oppression of what the Yahud did and do, many good things that were allowed became forbidden. Why? For their blocking Allah's path. And for interest, which they were forbidden, expressly forbidden to engage in, and devouring people's property. Now, all was allowed for them except that they forbid for themselves, before the Torah was revealed. So they were living before the Torah was revealed. And then they forgot it, or they just didn't want it. And whatever they put in its place, they had no proof for this. No dalils, no evidence for what they were. They invented things for their own selves. So bring forth the correct Torah and recite it if you are truthful. That's a verse from Quran that the Sheikh stated. So if you continue to lie, and you will be oppressors, so we must say, because it's a verse in the Quran, believe in all that is revealed. Millat Ibraheem Hanifa, ma kanu min al-mushrikeen. So no matter who you're speaking to, the Yehud or the Nasara, you call them to the Millat Ibrahim wherever they can find it, whether it be what was correct in the Torah, and who knows, and what was corrected in the Injil. Because, once I said again, the halal is bayin and the haram is bayin. Now, right here is what I was referring to earlier. Sheikh says time will come when we will be able to discuss this in detail. Now we are silent from our little knowledge. What he's really saying is they don't allow them to delve or to deeply proclaim. You know what I mean? Yeah, you do. Because this is real politique, as usual. Now we're moving on to verse 161 in Surah An-Nisa. The Sheikh said, let us discuss personal responsibility. Don't ask me, and I won't ask you. All will be seen by Allah, because Allah knows every mithqala dharra. I really love this phrase, mithqala dharra. It means an atom's weight. If you read the translation, and I always felt from the moment I read that phrase years ago, when I knew a little bit of Arabic, I said, mithqala dharra. Oh, dharra is atom. Mithqal, the root of this word is thaqula, weight. An atom's weight. Then I thought about, because I don't know science at all, I'm very weak in it, but I thought about, why did Allah say for the tiniest particle was mithqala dharra? So back, well, it's the words of Allah, so we cannot say way back when or way back then when this was revealed, because the words of Allah are eternal. They are exactly the speech of Allah, uncreated. However, thaqulat. You know, when you were doing juz amma, when you were young, you would say, وَمَنْ ثَقُلَتْ مَوَازِينُهُ. You know, وَمَنْ خَفَتْ مَوَازِينُهُ. So the concept of the thaqala was and is repeated in the Quran. And then I remember, I didn't take chemistry because I didn't want to. I didn't take physics either. But there was something called the atomic weights, and there was a table of all of these abbreviations. They had symbols. And if you wanted to be involved in anything in science, you have to memorize this table. I think it's called the Mendelean table, some word like that. And it talks about, once again, the concept of weight. So then I think about the concept of gravity. And as I told you, I never leaned towards science. It didn't fascinate me. I don't like it. It's not something that I'm attracted to. And funny enough, as I'm doing this lesson, not funny enough, that's a foolish English euphemism. Strangely enough, no, nothing strange. Allah decrees everything. I had already translated this, but I hadn't recorded it. And this afternoon, there jumps up on my feed a new lesson from Hamza Yusuf, where he's talking about viruses. And you know, he was a nurse and he worked in a hospital for quite some time and he enjoyed it. And he was saying that nobody really knows about viruses. Are they alive? Do they cause disease? Because many of the older scholars said that jinn cause disease. So he's putting these two things in a parallel explanation and saying, well, is there a relation between viruses and jinn? Then he tells us that viruses, if you look at them in a microscope, they're moving. And he said they look like tiny little creatures. So now I recall when I had to look under a microscope, it was probably 6th grade when they started this and forced you to take what was called science class, and we all had to look through the microscope. And I could never see anything because my eyes were always bad, and even way back then they were. And I just gave up because they kept saying, don't you see it? Don't you see it? It's moving. And I would say, no, I don't see anything. So there you are. Now, I forget, I should have written it down. I was negligent. I'm sorry. But some of you might recognize this statement, wherein the great Sheikh Ghazali said that math and science shouldn't be studied. He was against them. Isn't that funny? Because I'm against them too, because I never liked it and didn't do well. But Ghazali is known to me as a Sufi sheikh. Ihya Ulumuddin. That book, and I used to be so I don't want to use the word upset, but in the earlier days when I knew a little bit of Arabic, that's all they'd teach in every masjid in America. Ihya Ulumuddin, Ihya Ulumuddin. In Florida, in Boston area, it didn't matter. Was it a Pakistani masjid? Was it an Arab masjid? What was it? And then the imams would always want me to do the women, and I would say, yeah, I'll do the Tawheed book. Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab. And I refused to cooperate with them with their Ihya Ulumuddin because I want to do what I like and what I know and what I studied and what I believe. Do you know where I read Ihya Ulumuddin? They gave us an assignment, just a few pages, in the university, which we call it Jew. That's a wrong word. I shouldn't say that. But yes, I was assigned by a professor of that persuasion when I was taking a course on the Middle East. And I remember reading Ihya Ulumuddin, and I wasn't impressed. So from the minute I picked up the book of Tawheed from the very first page, amounting to 1,000 pages, I loved that book, and I still do. And I review it, and I always say it should be next to the Quran. You should read Kitab al-Tawheed. Now, my great Sheikh Fawzi Said in Egypt, he didn't say that. He said, you read Imam, the Hanbali Sheikh, Ibn Rajab. And this book, Jami' al-Ulum wal-Hikm, he said that should be right up there with Quran. When you finish Quran, you read this book and you keep reading it forever. You never stop reading it. Never let it go out of your hands because it's inclusive of everything. Yes, it is. It's all tafsir, all hadith, sirah, Arabic language. Yes. Ibn Rajab, Hanbali madhab. I left it in Egypt, though. I'm so sad that I left it there. And that book, I read in it, and I should have written the page number, and I just didn't. And he mentioned in some of the fiqh section that it's not allowed for a Muslim to wear the exact same uniform every day. Zay, it's called zay, whether it be representing whatever. just don't wear it, the same thing all the time. So, while that cancels right out there the nuns and the priests, would that also cancel out the military and the police? Yeah. Would that also cancel out the shiyuch who dress like priests? It's called a cassock. You know, that looks like a suit jacket, but it buttons all the way down. And it has a tiny little white notch at the top. That's what priests wear. It's called the priest's cassock. Little buttons. You know, there's so many things that if you really read, you discover miracles. So I can't recall which page it was on. I can't wait to run back to Egypt and get my copy and read it but there's no shiyuch you can, there's nobody here like in Egypt that you can talk to. There just isn't. And even though I have my friends, my women friends, I can easily access them on Messenger and WhatsApp. They're not like shiyuch. Because yes, they memorize the Quran. Yes, they memorize all the Qur'at. Yes, they understand the meanings of the words. But they're not like shiyuch. These shiyuch, they know a lot more. Why? Oh, is it because they're better than women and smarter? No. It's because they can do whatever they want all day long, and their wives will cook and clean and take care of the children. A noble profession. I'm not in any way knocking it or belittling it. Not at all. It's just that, is that the way Allah wanted it? I don't know. You see, I'm not exactly sure about the whole system of masajids and the way they run, because they resemble churches, and I know that couldn't be correct. It couldn't be correct. So I'll give you one example. I mean, I'm continuing with the sheikh, and I have another half page. But I don't want to miss on what jumps into my mind, because it jumps in for a reason. Do you know in the Protestant churches, since old New England until now, they don't have priests because, their reverend ministers get married and they have families. So at the end of the Sunday service, it would be, because that's their day when they all go gather in their meeting houses, which is the original word for them in early America. 1600s, they call them the meeting house. So jumping up to the present, the priest, the Catholic priest, never did this. The Protestant reverend ministers in any one of their varied sects, always does this. When the sermon finished, the churchgoers would walk out, and that reverend, pastor, they call him, there's many words. If you say reverend, pastor, minister, it all means Protestant, not Catholic. Catholic, you say priest, or you call him father. You see? He wasn't a father of anyone because they don't get married and have children. This is such a complex issue, but that's why I'm here, and I really want you to know. So, what did he do? He would stand at the door, and every churchgoer that was leaving that church, he would greet them, shake their hand, smile. How are you? How is everything? Individually, as they passed out of the church. So that's why I'm saying this remoteness of the imams. It's not good. I'll tell you another thing that's not good. They have structured the masajid here in America not according to anything Salafi. As a matter of fact, quite the opposite. They make them cathedral-esque with lots of decorations, which Prophet Muhammad forbid decorating the masjid. But no matter, they like to, and they like it to be as ornate as possible with crystal chandeliers and gorgeous calligraphy everywhere. No pictures, because they know that that's Catholic, so they don't do pictures. But, that's not what I'm going to discuss now. I'm going to discuss something worse. They have designed, who are they? I don't know, but you'll recognize my words. They've designed the masajid for the Muslims in America to very much resemble what we would call the parish system. meaning you identify with one masjid. You belong to that masjid. You pay your zakat to that masjid. You give your charity of whatever you can. When you want to give something, you give it to that masjid. You support the imam. And guess what? Only. Can you jump around from masjid to masjid? Well, my goodness, that's the sunnah. That's what the Salafis do in Egypt. You know, I call it the diocesan system, which is, you can call it the parish system. It's Catholic, is what it is. So when you give somebody limited options through an administration, that's not Islam. What is Islam? Well, some people, they're very radical. They would say, we don't need masjids, in this time and place. And no. The masjids aren't doing anything. They don't do what they're supposed to do. So what's the point? Well, there is a point. Because if you do not have masjids, you will not have a Friday prayer with a khutbah. And that is part of the essential beauty of the Friday prayer, that you're all gathered together as Muslims and you listen to, we say sheikh. They say imam in Egypt, some of them, but you know who I mean. The leading person who knows Quran better than anyone else, he's called sheikh in Egypt, or imam in America, and he's called the khatib, the one who gives the sermon in Arabic. So getting back to the lesson of Sheikh Jamil, because we only have a few more minutes, I don't want to get off on too much of a tangent, but returning to Surah Nisa, personal responsibility. Things will not be as you wish. You have a mountain of sins. Imagine you call yourself Muslim, but you will be asked. You will be asked about the smallest dharra or the stockpile of sins that you all know that you have. And that way, if you don't make tawbah, especially you from Ahl Kitab, meaning the J and the C word, you can go back and review all my lessons about that. There's many. You will not find any protector nor anyone to bring you victory. All males, every male, every female of the believers will enter Jannah and not be oppressed. You will not be oppressed as much as, and these are the words that are always very impressive to me. It's called, they're Arabic words. Naqir, al-fatil, or, I can't even read my own writing. They're the three parts of the date stone, which is the outer and the inner, and then there's like a silky, a sheer part. If you open up a date, you will find that there are three parts to the date, and it has Arabic words. It's the date pit. I wrote fatil, naqir, and kitmir. That's it. Okay, so the three parts, naqir, fatil, and kitmir. Allah knows every little part of that date, as he knows what is in every little part of your words and what you proclaim and what you hide. You can't hide anything. And the reason that this simile is given of the date is it just looks like a brown thing, but when you open it up, it's so complex and so distinct. And evidently, Allah is using this for those folks back then to impress them with the intricacies of Allah's creation. So whoever calls on Allah alone and does good deeds and follows the Millat Ibraheem Hanifa will go to Jannah. But remember, it's not your amani, not your hopes that put you in the Jannah. You see, because Christians and Jews, I have to say it just to, they all hope for Jannah. But whoever does evil will be recompensed by evil. The Yahud hope for Jannah. And then they say things like, we are the children of God, and we are more loved, and we are Allah's favorites. We are awliya, and we will only stay in the fire for a limited time. Now, this is the beauty of the shaykh, because he gives you a detail about what that means. He says, they say, maybe only 40 days. And that means because they worship the golden calf. Or is it 8 days? They don't even know. They flip around between how long they're going to stay in the fire. They say the world is 8,000 years, and we will get punished every 1,000 years until there are only 8 days remaining. So I can't comment on that. I never heard that, but if Sheikh said it, it's correct. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.